Imagine a country so poor in the 1950s that it had to rely on foreign aid just to feed its people, where rubble lined the streets and hope was in short supply. Now fast forward a few decades, and that same country is setting global trends in technology, music, fashion, and innovation. Welcome to South Korea, the underdog that didn't just survive history's punches, but got up swinging and built an empire from the ashes. Today, it's hard to picture a world without Samsung smartphones, Hyundai cars, or K-pop ruling global charts. But South Korea's rise wasn't magic. It was strategy, sweat, and sheer willpower. This is the story of how a war-torn nation transformed into a global powerhouse, and why the rest of the world should be paying very close attention. The Korean War, 1950 to 1953, didn't just divide Korea, it devastated it. After 35 harsh years under Japanese occupation, South Korea was thrust into a brutal civil war that left cities like Seoul in ruins. Infrastructure was either bombed or never built. Millions were dead, displaced, or starving. By 1960, the average South Korean earned just $79 a year, poorer than most African nations at the time. The economy was in shambles, jobs were scarce, and hope was hard to find. So what changed? In 1961, a military coup brought Park Chung-hee to power in South Korea. His rule was authoritarian. He restricted civil liberties, silenced opposition, and maintained strict control over the country. Despite his harsh methods, Park had a clear economic vision. He believed that South Korea needed more than just stability. It needed rapid development to survive and grow in a competitive global economy. To achieve this, his government introduced a series of 5-year economic plans focused on industrialization, infrastructure, and export-driven growth. These policies laid the foundation for South Korea's transformation from a poor, agrarian society into a modern industrial economy. Park's strategy wasn't about reinventing the wheel. He took inspiration from Japan's Meiji Restoration and other post-war economic miracles. The idea was simple but powerful. Let's build stuff the world wants to buy. So they started with light manufacturing, things like textiles, shoes, wigs, seriously, and cheap consumer goods. These were relatively easy to produce and didn't require a lot of capital or high-tech machinery. But here's where it gets smart. They used the money they made from exports to reinvest in better industries, like steel, shipbuilding, and eventually electronics. This model is called export-led growth, and it worked like magic. South Korea became a country obsessed with exports. It wasn't about just feeding the domestic market. They wanted to be a player on the world stage. And it worked. Korea's economic rise without mentioning the chaebols. These were massive, family-run conglomerates that the government supported and groomed to become global powerhouses. We're talking Samsung, started with grocery trading. Hyundai, began with construction. LG, once made toothpaste. SK Group, Daewoo, and more. These companies received special loans, tax breaks, and government contracts. In return, they were expected to perform, no exceptions. The result? These chaebols became the backbone of Korea's industrial machine. They created jobs, drove innovation, and eventually dominated international markets. Samsung, for instance, went from selling noodles and fish to building smartphones, microchips, TVs, and even military tanks. While factories were being built and the exports were taking off, something else was happening behind the scenes, an education revolution. Korea didn't have many natural resources, no oil, no gold mines, but it had something even better, its people. So the government invested heavily in education. Schools were built, curriculums were modernized, teachers were trained, and the culture shifted toward valuing academic excellence above almost everything else. Today, South Korean students regularly score among the highest in global math and science tests. That relentless pursuit of knowledge created a highly skilled workforce, one that was ready to take on high-tech industries and lead the digital future. In the 1980s and 1990s, South Korea began transitioning from heavy industry to technology and innovation. The government rolled out programs to support science and technology, research centers, and startups. They also built one of the world's most advanced internet infrastructures. In fact, South Korea was one of the first countries in the world to have nationwide broadband internet. By the 2000s, South Korea wasn't just following trends, it was setting them. Samsung became a global leader in semiconductors and smartphones. LG pushed innovations in displays and appliances. Hyundai and Kia transformed into respected global car brands. And they weren't just successful, they were dominant. While all this was happening, something else was bubbling under the surface: Korean culture. In the 1990s and early 2000s, South Korea began promoting its music, TV, and film industries. The result? The Korean Wave, or Hallyu, a massive cultural movement that swept across Asia and eventually the world. K-dramas found audiences from Bangkok to Buenos Aires. K-pop bands like BTS and Blackpink broke records on Billboard. Korean cinema won global awards. Remember Parasite at the Oscars. Korean fashion, beauty, and cuisine became global sensations. This wasn't just about entertainment, it was strategic. Culture became a tool for global influence, diplomacy, and yes, more exports. So where is South Korea today? It's the 12th largest economy in the world. It's a top exporter of electronics, cars, ships, and semiconductors. It's a leader in innovation, regularly topping global R&D rankings. It has some of the most powerful cultural exports on the planet. And perhaps most impressively, it's all happened in a single lifetime. South Korea didn't stumble into success. It built it, brick by brick, chip by chip, song by song. From bombed-out ruins to the cutting edge of global technology and pop culture, the country has pulled off one of the greatest economic and social turnarounds in modern history. So the next time you use a Samsung phone, dance to a K-pop hit, or cruise in a Hyundai, remember, this isn't just cool tech or catchy music. It's the sound of a nation that refused to stay down.